Day 87. Judges 4-6. After Ehud died, the Israelites again did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his forces was Sisera, who lived in Haroshet Hagoyim. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, because Jabin had 900 chariots of iron, and he had harshly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. And she would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, where the Israelites would go up to her for judgment. She summoned Barak son of Abinoam from Kadesh in Naphtali and said to him, Surely the Lord, the God of Israel, is commanding you, Go and march to Mount Tabor, taking with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun. And I will draw out Sisera the commander of Jabin's army, his chariots and his troops to the river Kishon, and I will deliver him into your hand. Barak said to her, If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go. I will certainly go with you. Deborah replied, But the road you are taking will bring you no honor, because the Lord will be selling Sisera into the hand of a woman. So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh, where he summoned Zebulun and Naphtali. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite had moved away from the Kenites, the descendants of Hobab the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent by the great tree of Zananim, which was near Kadesh. When Sisera was told that Barak son of Abinoam had gone up Mount Tabor, he summoned all 900 of his iron chariots and all the men with him, from Haroshet Hagoyim to the river Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, Arise, for this is the day that the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone before you? So Barak came down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. And in front of him the Lord rooted with the sword Sisera, all his charioteers, and all his army. Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot. Then Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Haroshet Hagoyim, and the whole army of Sisera fell by the sword, not a single man was left. Meanwhile, Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there was peace between Jabin king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to greet Sisera and said to him, Come in, my lord. Come in with me. Do not be afraid. So he entered her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. Sisera said to her, Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. So she opened a container of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again. Stand at the entrance to the tent, he said, and if anyone comes and asks you, Is there a man here? Say, No. But as he lay sleeping from exhaustion, Heber's wife Jael took a tent peg, grabbed a hammer, and went silently to Sisera. She drove the peg through his temple and into the ground, and he died. When Barak arrived in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to greet him and said to him, Come, and I will show you the man you are seeking. So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera dead, with a tent peg through his temple. On that day God subdued Jabin king of Canaan before the Israelites. And the hand of the Israelites grew stronger and stronger against Jabin king of Canaan until they destroyed him. On that day Deborah and Barak son of Abinoam sang this song, When the princes take the lead in Israel, when the people volunteer, bless the Lord. Listen, O kings. Give ear, O princes. I will sing to the Lord, I will sing praise to the Lord, the God of Israel. O Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the land of Edom, the earth trembled, the heavens poured out rain, and the clouds poured down water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, the one of Sinai, before the Lord, the God of Israel. In the days of Shamgar son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were deserted and the travelers took the byways. Life in the villages ceased, it ended in Israel, until I, Deborah, arose, a mother in Israel. When they chose new gods, then war came to their gates. Not a shield or spear was found among 40,000 in Israel. My heart is with the princes of Israel, with the volunteers among the people. Bless the Lord. You who ride white donkeys, who sit on saddle blankets, and you who travel the road, ponder the voices of the singers at the watering places. There they shall recount the righteous acts of the Lord, the righteous deeds of his villagers in Israel. Then the people of the Lord went down to the gates, Awake, awake, O Deborah. Awake, awake, sing a song. Arise, O Barak, and take hold of your captives, O son of Abinoam. Then the survivors came down to the nobles, the people of the Lord came down to me against the mighty. Some came from Ephraim, with their roots in Amalek. Benjamin came with your people after you. The commanders came down from Machir, the bearers of the marshal's staff from Zebulun. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah, and Issachar was with Barak, rushing into the valley at his heels. In the clans of Reuben there was great indecision. Why did you sit among the sheepfolds to hear the whistling for the flocks? In the clans of Reuben there was great indecision. Gilead remained beyond the Jordan. Dan, why did you linger by the ships? Asher stayed at the coast and remained in his harbors. Zebulun was a people who risked their lives, Naphtali, too, on the heights of the battlefield. Kings came and fought, then the kings of Canaan fought at Taanach by the waters of Megiddo, but they took no plunder of silver. From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera. The river Kishon swept them away, the ancient river, the river Kishon. March on, O my soul, in strength. Then the hoofs of horses thundered, the mad galloping of his stallions. Curse Meroz, says the angel of the Lord. Bitterly curse her inhabitants, for they did not come to help the Lord against the mighty. Most blessed among women is Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, most blessed of tent-dwelling women. He asked for water, and she gave him milk. In a magnificent bowl she brought him curds. She reached for the tent peg, her right hand for the workman's hammer. She struck Sisera and crushed his skull, she shattered and pierced his temple. At her feet he collapsed, he fell, there he lay still, at her feet he collapsed, he fell, where he collapsed, there he fell dead. Sisera's mother looked through the window, she peered through the lattice and lamented, why is his chariot so long in coming? What has delayed the clatter of his chariots? Her wisest ladies answer, indeed she keeps telling herself, are they not finding and dividing the spoil, a girl or two for each warrior, a plunder of dyed garments for Sisera, the spoil of embroidered garments for the neck of the looter? So may all your enemies perish, O Lord. But may those who love you shine like the sun at its brightest. And the land had rest for 40 years. Again the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, so he delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years, and the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. Because of the Midianites, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites would plant their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other people of the east would come up and invade them, encamping against them as far as Gaza and destroying the produce of the land. They left Israel with no sustenance, neither sheep, nor oxen nor donkeys. For the Midianites came with their livestock and their tents like a great swarm of locusts. They and their camels were innumerable, and they entered the land to ravage it. Israel was greatly impoverished by Midian, and the Israelites cried out to the Lord. Now when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet, who told them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. I delivered you out of the hands of Egypt and all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You must not fear the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But you did not obey me. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophir that belonged to Joash the Abizrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, the Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor. Please, my Lord, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonders of which our fathers told us, saying, has not the Lord brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Am I not sending you? Please, my Lord, Gideon replied, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's house. Surely I will be with you, the Lord replied, and you will strike down all the Midianites as one man. Gideon answered, if I have found favor in your sight, give me a sign that it is you speaking with me. Please do not depart from this place until I return to you. Let me bring my offering and set it before you. And the Lord said, I will stay until you return. So Gideon went in and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread and an ephah of flour. He placed the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot and brought them out to present to him under the oak. And the angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, lay them on this rock, and pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord extended the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. And fire flared from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he said, "Oh no, Lord God! I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid, for you will not die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it "The Lord is Peace." To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. On that very night the Lord said to Gideon, "Take your father's young bull and a second bull 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold. And with the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down, take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his father's household and the men of the city, he did it by night rather than in the daytime. When the men of the city got up in the morning, there was Baal's altar torn down, with the Asherah pole cut down beside it and the second bull offered up on the newly built altar. "Who did this?" they said to one another. And after they had investigated thoroughly, they were told, "Gideon son of Joash did it." Then the men of the city said to Joash, "Bring out your son. He must die, because he has torn down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it." But Joash said to all who stood against him, "Are you contending for Baal? Are you trying to save him? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If Baal is a god, let him contend for himself with the one who has torn down his altar." So on that day Gideon was called Jerubbaal, that is to say, "Let Baal contend with him," because he had torn down Baal's altar. Then all the Midianites, Amalekites, and other people of the east gathered together, crossed over the Jordan, and camped in the valley of Jezreel. So the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, who blew the ram's horn and rallied the Abiezrites behind him. Calling them to arms, Gideon sent messengers throughout Manasseh, as well as Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, so that they came up to meet him. Then Gideon said to God, "If you are going to save Israel by my hand, as you have said, then behold, I will place a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you are going to save Israel by my hand, as you have said." And that is what happened. When Gideon arose the next morning, he squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowlful of water. Then Gideon said to God, "Do not be angry with me, let me speak one more time. Please allow me one more test with the fleece. This time let it be dry, and the ground covered with dew." And that night God did so. Only the fleece was dry, and dew covered the ground. Luke 4 verses 31 to 44. Then he went down to Capernaum, a town in Galilee, and on the Sabbath he began to teach the people. They were astonished at his teaching, because his message had authority. In the synagogue there was a man possessed by the spirit of an unclean demon. He cried out in a loud voice, "Ha! What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked the demon. "Be silent," he said. "Come out of him." At this, the demon threw the man down before them all and came out without harming him. All the people were overcome with amazement and asked one another, "What is this message? With authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out?" And the news about Jesus spread throughout the surrounding region. After Jesus had left the synagogue, he went to the home of Simon, whose mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever. So they appealed to Jesus on her behalf, and he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And she got up at once and began to serve them. At sunset, all who were ill with various diseases were brought to Jesus, and laying his hands on each one, he healed them. Demons also came out of many people, shouting, "You are the Son of God." But he rebuked the demons and would not allow them to speak, because they knew he was the Christ. At daybreak, Jesus went out to a solitary place, and the crowds were looking for him. They came to him and tried to keep him from leaving. But Jesus told them, "I must preach the good news of the kingdom of God to the other towns as well, because that is why I was sent." And he continued to preach in the synagogues of Judea.